Back-to-back Big Ten titles and appearances in the college football playoff, but that success didn't translate onto the recruiting trail in 2023 as the Wolverines finished 18th in the On3 industry rankings. Let's bring on EJ Holland to talk Michigan's top 2024 recruiting targets. Here's the guys I want to talk about today. 5-star edge Dylant Stewart, 4-star QB Jadyn Davis, 4-star running back Jordan Marshall, 4-star tight end Brady Preiskorn, and 4-star linebacker Aaron Chiles. EJ, let's start at the top with the number one player in America, 5-star edge Dylant Stewart. You don't even have to explain why he's so important, but where does Michigan stand in his recruitment?
Yeah, definitely. The number one overall player in the country. I mean, this dude is an absolute freak. I actually had a chance to see him last year go head-to-head in the fall against Nicholas Harbaugh, a fellow 5-star from last cycle. And it was clear Dylant Stewart was the best player on the field. I mean, this guy's tremendous blend of power, speed, athleticism. I mean, you can go on and on. He's the number one player in the country for a reason. As far as where Michigan stands right now, they are in that top group. Michigan has hit the DMV, his home region, extremely hard. They've done a tremendous job of producing edge rushers. Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, Mike Morris will go in the draft this year, and that's certainly appealing to Dylant Stewart. He has great relationships with guys on the staff as well. Dylan Ronnie, who works with the edge rushers, Mike Helston, Michigan's defensive line coach. They have gone all in on recruiting Dylant Stewart, and this isn't his first time on campus. I mean, he's been to Michigan before. He visited last year, so this will be a return visit, and I do believe Michigan is right up there, with Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, South Carolina. That's probably the group that makes up that top list right now.
What a heated recruitment. That'll be interesting to watch as it develops throughout the spring. Let's move to 4-star quarterback Jadyn Davis out of North Carolina. A lot of people had thought that maybe Jadyn Davis would have been committed to Michigan by now, but Harbaugh's flirtation with the NFL, other teams getting involved, and Jadyn Davis's recruitment is still very open. Where do things stand with Michigan?
Yeah, the whole approach is definitely interesting. You look at Michigan's quarterback recruiting the last two cycles. They've gone back-to-back with project quarterbacks. 2 years ago, they took Jaden Denegal and Alex Orji, both kind of guys that could change positions or be long-term projects. Last year, they went with Kendrick Bell, another guy that's a long-term project that could eventually play elsewhere on the field. So they haven't landed a high-end core recruit since J.J. McCarthy, who's obviously the starter right now and might only have a year left at Michigan, depending on how well he does this season. So they absolutely need to land an elite quarterback. With that said, they've gone with an all your eggs in one basket approach. I mean, they're really only recruiting Jadyn Davis, and they did expect to get a commitment from him early on. He originally had a decision timeline of December. Obviously, it's February, so he didn't make a decision. So Michigan is expected to have him back on campus for a visit in March. They're going to push to close. Harbaugh's staying, obviously, like you mentioned, the NFL flirtation may have given the Davis camp some pause. They had a quarterback coaching change. You had Matt Weiss get into some hot water with some computer access crimes, which was a little weird. And now they have a new quarterback coach, Kurt Campbell, who they promoted from within. So at least there's a little bit of familiarity there, even though Campbell wasn't too involved on the recruiting side. So I think meeting Campbell on this visit, getting to sit down with Harbaugh and answer some of those difficult questions, which they've already had conversations about the NFL flirtations and things like that in the past, but doing it in person, I think, is a little different. So Michigan's going to push really hard to get this commitment here in March. If that does not happen, if Jadyn Davis leaves Ann Arbor and says, you know what, I want to go to Columbus and check out Ohio State, or I want to go to Clemson, I think Michigan has to expand the quarterback board. Kurt Campbell has started monitoring some other passers. He's contacted on 300 quarterback Michael Van Buren. But the only guy they are actively really pushing for is Jadyn Davis. And that's a dangerous game. They played that game last cycle with Dante Moore, and it did not work. So it has to work this cycle.
All right, we go from elite quarterback to elite running back. 4-star running back Jordan Marshall. Where do the Wolverines stand with him?
Yeah, so another position where they've gone back-to-back cycles without a true every down back. Now, last cycle they did land on 300 running back Cole Cabana, but he is more of a an athlete type of back, a guy that can play in the slot, kick returner, punt returner, a guy you don't want to run between the tackles every single down. So they haven't really landed a true every down elite back since Donovan Edwards, and who was in the same class as JJ McCarthy. So it's been a while. When you look at Michigan, this is a team that runs the football. They love to pound the ball. They have a legend coaching the position in Mike Hart, who's Michigan's all-time leading rusher. Michigan should be a destination school for elite backs. It's time for Mike Hart to step up on the recruiting trail. He's one of the best running back coaches in the country. He has to land an elite talent. You have one right in your home region in the Midwest in Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall and Taylor Tatum out of Longview, Texas are the two top guys on the board. Today we're focusing a little more on Jordan Marshall, who is a little more realistic just because he is closer to Michigan. He's made a couple of visits already. He was on campus in the fall. He was back in Ann Arbor last month. He's expected to be back in the spring. Michigan and Ohio State pretty much going head to head here. I mean, Michigan has beaten Ohio State on the field in back-to-back years. They haven't won very many recruiting battles against the Buckeyes as of late. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen now. And you have to do it at this position, at the running back position. There's no more running back friendly school in the country than Michigan. So getting a top 100 guy in Marshall out of Ohio would be huge, not only for the position, but just beating Ohio State finally on the recruiting trail, to couple that with the wins on the field.
Yeah, they're beating them on the field. Why not win some of these recruiting battles? It's about time. Let's move on to 4-star tight end Brady Preiskorn. We know Michigan loves those versatile, big-body tight ends, and Brady is one of the best pass catchers in America this cycle. Where do things stand with him in Michigan?
Yeah, definitely. I think Brady Preiskorn is the top guy in the state this year. You don't have a true maybe 5-star level contender like you did with a Dante Moore or Donovan Edwards of the past, or Will Johnson. But I think Brady Preiskorn is a terrific prospect, one of the top tight ends in the country. He fits what Michigan does. I mean, he's a true inline guy that puts guys in the dirt when blocking in the run game. He's a big pass catcher, guy that's a mismatch in the red zone as well. He's really, really quiet. You don't see a lot of Brady Preiskorn updates at all anywhere nationally on the Michigan beat. It's tough to get a true read on his recruitment. But being an in-state guy, having the familiarity with the program, being a tight end, especially when Michigan, goes out there and runs 3 tight end sets. They have multiple guys on the field at that position all the time. And Brady definitely doesn't mind blocking. His high school team is a run-heavy team. I think it's a really good fit for Michigan. I think he's just one of those quiet kids that doesn't let you really know what's going on. But I know that there's a lot of optimism when it comes to Brady Preiskorn coming out of Ann Arbor. And he would be a terrific guy to pair with Hogan Hansen, who's an on-300 tight end out of the Pacific Northwest, who's already committed to the Wolverines.
All right. And lastly, we got 4-star on-300 linebacker Aaron Chiles. What's the key to his recruitment to Michigan?
I think just getting him more familiar with linebackers coach Chris Partridge. Michigan did have a change at the linebackers coach. George Hilo is gone. Chris Partridge is in. The good news is Partridge has been at Michigan. He's long been considered one of the top recruiters in the country. He did recruit Chiles a little bit during his time at Ole Miss, so there is familiarity there. Chiles visited in January, and he told us first that Michigan was the leader coming out of that visit. I went back and I saw him at Good Counsel a couple of weeks ago, and he reiterated that Michigan is the leader. It wasn't just a visit high. So I think getting him back on campus here in early March and having him meet with Chris Partridge could eventually seal the deal for the Wolverines. Chiles said he would like to make a decision fairly soon. So with Michigan being in the lead and getting him back on campus, the opportunity is going to be there to earn a commitment. And I think Chiles is one of the more underrated guys in the country, even though he's a top 250 prospect. I think this is the next Junior Colson, who was a star as a true freshman for Michigan. A lot of the same skill set, a guy who's a monster in the middle, extremely physical, but can run sideline to sideline, which is what you have to do in Jesse Minter's defensive scheme. He can cover. So he checks a ton of boxes for that scheme, for what Jesse Minter desires at the linebacker position. And I know Michigan has him valued kind of in that 5-star level tier. I mean, he's the number 1 linebacker on the board, no doubt. It's clear cut. So they absolutely love what Chiles brings to the table, and they'd love to have him on board early. And he's good friends with Dylant Stewart, so that can only help.
That can only help. Now, a lot of Michigan fans were kind of left scratching their head. Michigan makes the playoffs, they beat their rivals, but for some reason they finish 18th in recruiting. And you did a good job of documenting along the way that part of this reason was because Michigan's NIL infrastructure just wasn't there or wasn't effective very much in 2023. So my question to you, EJ, heading into the 24 cycle, has Michigan done anything to upgrade their NIL situation?
So here's the thing with NIL. There's NIL used for recruiting purposes, and there's NIL used for team purposes. And when it comes to using NIL for team purposes, Michigan is arguably one of the best in the country. A lot of guys have deals. Valiant Management Group does a terrific job of being innovative and getting these guys to earn extra cash. I mean, JJ McCarthy, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, guys like that are doing just fine with NIL. Right. So guys on the team are getting taken care of. But their approach on the recruiting trail has stayed consistent. This is a transformational, not a transactional process. And so while that might seem very ethical and moral, it doesn't exactly work with the 5-star level guys or the top 100 guys. Michigan landed 0 top 100 prospects last cycle off back-to-back college football playoff appearances, which is extremely surprising. And obviously NIL had a lot to do with that. And prospects can say all day long that NIL isn't a factor, but it is. College football recruiting has completely changed. So here's the deal with what Michigan has been trying to do. They've been trying to get a base salary model in place, and you've seen that at programs at a little bit of a lower level. SMU, Texas Tech, schools like that have a base salary model in place. Michigan wants to do that on a grander scale. So if you pay players on the team a base salary, let's say it's $50,000 for an offensive lineman. You stay 4 years, you're an offensive lineman at Michigan, you earn $200,000. That's a hard number that you can sell on the recruiting trail. Right now, they don't have any hard numbers. You're just basically telling them, hey, come play at Michigan and maybe you'll get some deals. You will if you're really good, but there's nothing guaranteed. You can point to Blake Corum, you can point to JJ McCarthy, but what about the depth pieces? Are they getting any cash? Probably not that much. So I think having a hard number, having a guarantee of, $200,000, that's obviously an arbitrary number, but just saying like, hey, if you come to Michigan, you're an offensive lineman, you can get $50,000 a year. That's a good selling point on top of what Michigan offers, which is the ability to compete at the highest level of football, the winningest program of all time, back-to-back college football playoff appearances, and one of the best degrees in the country. Michigan has everything to sell right now and nothing to really sell on the NIL front. So, if they can get that going, they'll have the total package on the recruiting trail.
All right, Michigan fans, before I ask EJ Holland who's the most important recruit this cycle, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button at On3 YouTube page. We got a ton of recruiting content, a whole lot of college football content from JD Pickell of the Hard Count. Go ahead right now, hit the subscribe button for me. Thank you. All right, EJ, now the question that all Michigan fans want to know, who do you think is the most important recruit for the Wolverines in the 2024 cycle?
Normally, I would say Aaron Chiles because of the Michigan defense being that guy in the middle to come in and replace Junior Colson, and Michigan prides itself on playing a physical brand of football. But you have to go with Jadyn Davis being the only quarterback on the board. I mean, you have to. There's no argument. You can argue all day long in terms of his talent level. Is he a 5-star guy? He did drop in the On3 rankings to number 105 nationally. You can argue if he's a 5-star level guy or a top 150 level guy. It doesn't matter because Michigan needs a true signal caller. They need an actual quarterback. You've gone back-to-back cycles with guys that could play linebacker or wide receiver, guys that might not stick at the position. You need an actual quarterback in the room to come in and not only be the guy after JJ McCarthy, because if you look at Michigan's quarterback room right now, it's not all that impressive either. So you might come in and be a true freshman starter. You need to land Jadyn Davis to also lead the class too, to jumpstart what has been a disappointment on the recruiting trail over the past year. Jadyn Davis can be the guy that gets other top-level recruits on board as well. Michigan hasn't had a quarterback leading the class since J.J. McCarthy. They haven't landed a top guy since J.J. McCarthy. It's Jadyn Davis time. It's put up or shut up time in March. They have to land him. There's no question about it.
Yeah, it's a quarterback-driven league, so that makes a lot of sense. Jadyn Davis, the most important recruit for Michigan in 24. All right, EJ, thanks for coming and setting the table for us on Wolverine recruiting. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for having me.
See ya.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, and remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.